Yo, this is Trav from Trav's Mad Ballin. We're going to hit you all with a little brief from the NBA Finals Game 2. The segment is called Rim Runners. I brought in a guest, Joe Largura, and we did the thing for a few. So check us out. Now spark that intro.
Music and sports, it's all the same. Making a name for yourself to get in the game. You're going hard in the paint, you're doing your thing. Keeping the crowd entertained while growing your fame. From the streets to the league, overseas. Wherever your talent takes you for the trophies. When you come into the system, just by all in. Go hard to the goal and put the ball in.
Yeah, this is Trav with Trav's Mad Ballin. And today we're going to do one of our small segments. It's not going to be the typical video of a player profile, but we thought we'd come up with something new. And that something new is an interview from either someone who's played basketball, someone interested in basketball, but it's all about basketball. And it's called Rim Runners, of course, the fast break. We want to get this thing done in about 7 minutes, 10 minutes, somewhere around there. But nevertheless, this conversation is going to be about Game 2 of the NBA Finals between the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks. I have along with me Joe Largura, and who is he? He's a freaking baller. That's who he is. That's who all he needs to be to do this. We're going to talk about the game and, of course, the big elephant in the room. Giannis, 42 points and a losing effort when other guys didn't show up.
Travis, thank you for having me on the show. Exactly. Giannis, all eyes on him. Two-time MVP winner. I obviously didn't get the third, but that's elite status to be in right there. And this guy, he's got to have a winning effort behind that 42-point performance. And I think one of the biggest things I see with that is the assists go down and the role players for Milwaukee become non-existent. I think Giannis, in Game 3, he's got to get into the post a little bit, get his back to the basket, and be able to monitor that court and see some of these guys, the Pat Covingtons, the PJ Tuckers, some role players that can get the team rallied with a big three in the moments they need something.
Now, they brought in players, as we know. Drew Holiday was brought in to be one of those players. Chris Middleton was brought in to be one of those players to get Giannis over the hump because he's supposed to be the star of this team. $58 million plus invested between just those two players, and they kind of show up when they want to. Giannis was the only player to show up when he needed to show up. And this is a guy who has come off of injury, wasn't expected to play into probably Game 3. He shows up in Game 2. He does his work, and they still lose. They needed at least one game in Phoenix to change the complete complexion. This isn't a situation like it was with the Nets with being down 2-0. This is a complete Phoenix team that will continue to play the way it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just like you said, those are some big-time names that they've worked to bring into town. Chris Middleton, number 15 for highest-paid players in the NBA. When you're putting out that kind of money, you got to have consistency from a player of that caliber. Drew Holiday, they needed to bring in a heavy hitter point guard. They dropped a 5-year, $150 million contract, gave up 3 first-round picks for that guy. They wanted him bad. Now we got him here, and he's putting up the same numbers in the playoffs that Eric Bledsoe averaged last year. It's unacceptable for a player of that caliber. Giannis simply needs help from those guys.
Absolutely. And going back to the numbers, we're talking about a Milwaukee team which came in with the right mindset, jumping on top of Phoenix, and they did exactly that on the road. They led in the first quarter, closed it out, leading the game. They led in the paint, 20-0 in the paint. And then in the second quarter, poof, only 16 points. What's up with that?
You got to have consistency. You got to have guys able to step up, and you cannot have droughts against a consistent and high percentage shooting team like Phoenix. Phoenix has got a lot of angles they can hit you from, and they shoot high percentage shots, and they have a floor general that's going to continue to get them those high caliber shots so they can shoot a high percentage throughout the game. When you hit a drought against a team like Phoenix, you're going to be as dry as the desert.
Yeah, and you're talking about those high percentage shots. Well, some of those low percentage shots, those three-pointers, were dropping in droves because coming out of halftime, at least Giannis heard and got the message from his coach. He scores 20 points in the third quarter. The rest of the team didn't catch up. The problem here is for me when it comes to overall numbers, you let Giannis do what he does because he's just a dominant, freakish athlete, thus the Greek freak. They have 54 points in the paint, and they almost double up what was going on in Phoenix, who only had 28 points. But the deciding factor to me was the three-point shooting. It's one thing to be 12 of 24 and get 50% a clip, which is excellent, but to get 50% of 40, which is 60 points at the box, it nullifies anything on the inside.
This team is the highest percentage shooting team left in the playoffs. They were coming into the playoffs number 2. Only one team was ahead of them, but now they're the highest shooting percentage team left. And I agree with you. You hit 20 for 43s. That is an amazing clip. I'm interested to see if they can do it in Milwaukee, but regardless of what gym you're shooting 20 for 43s, that is extremely impressive.
Exactly. Absolutely impressive. And we, of course, talk about the Chris Paul effect. He had an opportunity to come to Phoenix, who just 3 years ago was one of the worst statistical teams and record-wise in all the NBA. He left from Oklahoma City, came here, Devin Booker, and he shared the same agent. They get together, and then we have this.
Yeah. Although Chris Paul doesn't have any finals appearances in his career, I still think he brings that veteran presence that a team needs for a long run stretch like this. Amazing. I couldn't even believe this when I saw it, but the only player on either of these teams who has seen the court in the finals, Jay Crowder.
Yeah,
we got
Jay
one
Crowder.
player that has played in the finals in his career, and that is Jay Crowder. But although Chris Paul hasn't been there, he sure composes himself like a winner, and he gets his team into these games.
I guess after all of these years playing in the NBA, always being the catalyst and the field general for a lot of these teams, I mean, his pedigree has proven itself. I mean, everywhere he's gone, regardless of what the reason was, he's gone everywhere, and the winning percentage of the team he was traded to has gone up measurably every time he has gone anywhere, including now Phoenix getting to his first finals. All of that experience over time, I don't think, first of all, I'm not going to ever say that playoff experience doesn't matter, but you have to get to the playoffs at least to the first time in order to get playoff experience. So
Absolutely.
For someone to say so-and-so doesn't have a playoff experience, that's a disadvantage. Well, Michael Jordan didn't have playoff experience until he got to the playoffs either. And after 63 points against Boston back in '86, well, he still didn't win. And then ultimately, it all paid off in a career. A lot of that could be said about Chris Paul right now.
Absolutely. And he's making everybody around him better. I think guys like Devin Booker appreciate his presence on the court, and very much so. I think the biggest beneficiary of him coming to Phoenix is DeAndre Ayton developing into a monster. He's getting the baskets fed to him in the right position. Chris Paul is setting this man up. He's helping him excel his career. That guy came in with a bundle of talent, obviously. But when you get paired up with a veteran point guard of Chris Paul's caliber, you're just going to see your progression in the league take off like we've seen him here in this season.
That's an insane backcourt that Phoenix has right now between the experience and the overall talent, with Devin Booker being involved. And as you say, DeAndre Ayton, I mean, the guy, his future is bright. And even right now, with Giannis being as dominant as he is, along with, against him, it doesn't matter when you have that outside game. Like, once again, what you said, this has to translate in Milwaukee as well. It can't be something that you just do at home, but they did what they were supposed to do. They're up 2-0. They're heading to Milwaukee. How do you see this playing out? What do they have to do different to change the outcome and the trajectory of this series?
You know what? I don't think Milwaukee needs to rewrite their playbook. They're 7-1 at home in the playoffs. They've been very difficult to beat at home. They have a strong home record through the regular season as well. The only team that's came into that arena and beat them in the playoffs so far is Atlanta in Game 1 when they had a ridiculous shooting night. So I think they need to take a deep breath. Budenholzer needs to get the bench involved, but most importantly, we need to see Middleton, Holiday, and Antetokounmpo dominating as they should be throughout this game in a home series when it's more or less a win or go home game. But since this team plays at a high rate at home, I think we're going to see Milwaukee come back with a renewed focus and steal one, maybe two of these games to make this a series again.
Yeah, I can see that happening as well. I can look at them winning Game 3, but it's really going to set the tempo for the rest of this series, them winning Game 3. That home cooking should matter as well. One of the things statistically that I looked at as well was that Milwaukee was 4-1 after a loss, going into this series. Well, they lost the first game. Now they're 4-2. Statistics sometimes doesn't match up, but you need a longer sample size in order to figure it out. But right
Absolutely.
now, as far as Giannis goes, what more can he do right now? Does he just stay the same? Does he change anything, or he just hopes that other guys who are paid to do their job do their job?
The biggest thing I want to see out of Giannis is to keep attacking as he is. Look for the open teammate. He's a great playmaker when he wants to be. But what I want to see from him is to not settle for jumpers, especially early in the shot clock. I know it's tempting when you see somebody 6 feet off of you and you're wide open for a three. But especially early in the shot clock, Giannis can get higher percentage shots by penetrating by himself or penetrating and kicking. And I think that's going to keep them from having those droughts where they, might have a long rebound from a missed Giannis three turn into a Phoenix fast break.
There's like a general consensus with Giannis. Even though he's dominant, he puts up the numbers, he's a freakish athlete. Some of these NBA guys, I think Big Perk in particular calls him a Robin, not a Batman. He's a number 2 option, not a number 1 option. Does anything this series change that perception, whether they win or lose?
No, I don't think so. I think Giannis can be your number 1 option, but I think that having Middleton be able to step up and take that co-pilot role with him from time to time is very important, because in the fourth quarter, sometimes you can close up the driving lanes and make it very difficult for Giannis. And down the stretch, that Chris Middleton three or fadeaway jump shot on the baseline might be needed, and we've seen him close out games in that manner.
Yeah, another thing finally is the free throws. That's also the difference between some of the margins of victory. I mean, even with the lights out shooting, going 50%, 20 or 40, throwing 60 points straight up just in 3-pointers, it was still a relatively close game that free throws could have closed made even closer, and it didn't. They have to get their free throws together as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Phoenix gets to the free throw line very frequently, and they hit them at an extremely high mark. They shoot, I think in game 1, they had 96%. They made 24 free throws. They did a better job of keeping Phoenix off of the line in game 2. However, on the other side, you're really living and dying by Giannis knocking down a somewhat consistent mark from the free throw line. And I think we've seen some improvement there, but you always got to hold your breath and worry that a team's going to follow him and put him on the line in critical moments, and he's going to split them or miss them both.
Yeah, you don't want a player like Ben Simmons who's just afraid to be in there, afraid to do anything because he feels like he's going to the line and he's going to let his team down. Then he already had let them down during the series.
Sure. You talked about statistics. I got one here that's a pretty long-running one. In the NBA playoffs, this is many, many years going back, 93% of the time a team has fell behind 2-0, they have lost. So that means Milwaukee's got a 7% chance statistically to come back. But I think they have a much better chance than the numbers show, because we've seen that happen 3 times in these playoffs. It's a rare thing to happen, but we saw Milwaukee come back from Brooklyn down 0-2, and we saw the Clippers do it twice.
But we need to keep it in perspective as well. When Milwaukee came back from an 0-2 deficit, this wasn't the same Nets team either. I mean, Kyrie Irving was gone, Kevin Durant carried him, and you still had pretty much a guy who wasn't at hardly 50% with James Harden. So when they use that in terms of just overall names, they're down 2-0. They came back. Look at the team that they started with, and look at the team that eventually went down. Because when they had those guys on the court, Milwaukee was blown out by nearly 40 points.
Sure, but it has happened. The 2-0 comebacks are very rare. Only 2 times it's happened in the recent NBA era. In my lifetime time of watching NBA, we saw the Heat do it in 2006, and we saw the Cavs do it. Come down actually from a 3-1, but they were down 2-0 as well. So we've seen it happen, but Milwaukee has a very slim margin for error going home, and they need to take these 2 games if they want to be taken seriously the rest of this series.
Absolutely, because this is an anomaly of a season to begin with. We're talking just a year removed from the pandemic. The bubble season, which people kind of put an asterisk by because of the way it ended. The Lakers did win, but you have people crying about an asterisk. Now this is a kind of sort of a year removed from it, but it's still a lot of lingering effects because of the shorter season and more play. Even in that shorter season, guys getting injured, everyone injured, a mass unit in the NBA. So,
Yeah.
you know, not necessarily an asterisk, but something to consider as well. So unusual things probably will happen this series because we've seen the entire playoffs do the same.
Yeah, I'm just glad that we got healthy rosters for the most part on both teams right now.
All right, so, you know, we're going to come to a close on that for this Rim Runners session of Yo Trav's Matt Ballin. No video today based on profiles, but definitely talk about the playoffs right now. Game 2 is over. Phoenix is up 2-0. Milwaukee's a little bit desperate. Going home, needing home cooking, needing to stop the bleeding. I have it on record. You're taking Milwaukee tomorrow.
I'm taking Milwaukee tomorrow. They're going to make this thing interesting. They're going to have that home cooking. A few more shots are going to fall for some bench players. We'll see a 2-1 series after tomorrow night.
And I'm going the same direction because these guys, as inconsistent as they are, the nature of being inconsistent is not doing well one day and doing well another day. Well, this is another day. So it's time for those guys to be comfortable at home in front of the home crowd, doing what got them those big contracts when it matters. And it should play out. There won't be a sweep. I still think Phoenix wins this series. I'm not going to get a 6-2 or anything like that. But this particular game, I think Milwaukee finally wins.
I agree. I'm excited to see it.
Yep, this is Joe Largura, and he's a baller. That's what we need. That's what we have. And we will break him down for a few minutes at least on this Rim Runner special of Yo Trav's Mad Ballin'. We'll catch you another time. And, well, enjoy the game.
Enjoy it, everybody. Thanks for having me. Always happy to be here.
We want to have you back even more.
Absolutely.